Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Carly Scholl. I'm the college planner here at Community America Credit Union. And tonight we are going to talk about ways to pay for the gap in college. If you have students who are going to school in the fall, then you are dealing with this right now. And then for those of you who have students a few years away, we can talk about ways to plan and what your options will be. So I do have a colleague with me tonight, and she will be taking your questions and sharing them with me. So please, if you have questions along the way, feel free to just drop them into the chat box. I'll stop a few times along so we can get those answered. And then, of course, I will stay on afterwards to make sure all of you have answers. You'll leave with my contact information, and so you can get a hold of me afterwards as well. Today, we are going to talk about cost of attendance and how is that related to the expected family contribution. I will tell you that EFC is related to the FAFSA, and the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, is changing. It's changing actually pretty drastically this year. The draft was released last week, but it is just a draft. The final one will be coming out sometime in December, maybe even January 24. Normally the FAFSA opens in October, so things will be different this year. And one of those will be EFC, which is changing to Student Aid Index, or SAI. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. But for right now, for those of you who have filed the FAFSA for this year, the term is EFC. So that's what I'm using tonight. We will talk about how schools then calculate their financial need, because you may be wondering, how did I get to the point where I got this letter and here is the cost that they're asking me to pay? I don't really know how I got there. And so I'm going to explain that. And then, like I said, we'll review some ways to cover that remaining cost. So the first is your cost of attendance. And all schools across the country, if they accept federal funds, they have to report a cost of attendance. The cost of attendance has to include 5 things. The first 2, tuition and fees and room and board, those are direct costs, meaning that they're typically charged directly from the institution, or you are making a payment directly to the institution. Your tuition and fees are going to be set obviously based on the number of credits you or your student enrolls in. And then your room and board will be based on the type of res hall your student chooses and the meal plan they choose. The other 3, books, transportation, and personal expenses, those are indirect costs because they are a part of your annual cost for the year to attend college. You have to prepare for books and what is it going to cost you to commute to school, or your living expenses outside of your room and board. But you don't necessarily pay the school directly for those. And so that's why we call them indirect. You do want to plan for them, but you don't necessarily get a bill from the school. And the indirect costs are ways that you can keep your costs down. You don't have a whole lot of say in your tuition and fees and room and board, other than the fact that if a school is out of your price range, you just don't go to school there. But the other 3, you can choose some inexpensive choices to keep those costs down. And that's what I tell my students: choose used books or rent your books. Walk or ride your bike instead of paying to take a car to campus. A lot of students, especially freshmen, they take their car, they don't use it, they park in the wrong spot, they get a parking ticket. So save money and just don't take the car, or don't eat out when you are paying for a meal plan. Those are some ways that you can save money in the indirect costs, and just to keep your cost of attendance down. Now, cost of attendance, if you have done any of this search already, is very expensive. The price tag is very expensive at all schools. Doesn't really matter where you're going. Every college is expensive. Certainly some are more expensive than others, but very few students actually pay full cost of attendance. And so that can be very difficult to determine how much are you going to pay over the course of these next 4 or 5 years if you're not really paying the cost of attendance, and cost of attendance is what's being advertised. So my colleagues at Community America developed this cost and compare calculator. It's very simple. It links to the National Center for Education Statistics data, which all federally funded schools have to report the data around the cost of attendance. And you as a user just have to enter these 3 quick questions, and you can find out what someone in your income bracket pays at that school. It's really fun. So get on and use this calculator. It's a free tool. It's also mobile friendly, and you can compare as many schools as you want just to see. And you'll be surprised at some of them, the difference between the sticker price and the actual net price, drastic, tens of thousands of dollars in difference. So yes, check it out, put all your interested schools in there, and you can get a better idea of what you should plan for a annual cost of attendance. Now, the next figure that is really important in determining financial aid is your expected family contribution, your EFC. Again, this comes from the FAFSA, which is the federal application for the free application for federal student aid, excuse me. It looks at both your parent and student income and assets, plus the household information as a whole. This is changing. So right now it has over 100 questions, and it is going down to 35 to 40 questions, and it will be much closer aligned with your tax information. But it is essentially the money that the school expects you to bring to the table. It is not written as a dollar amount when you receive your FAFSA, but that's really what it is. The school wants to know how much can you contribute toward your students' cost. A lot of families, though, they do not have their cost of attendance, or excuse me, their EFC covered with savings or earned income, and so they are using student loans to cover their EFC. This is good for 1 year. It is tied to the FAFSA. So every year you will file a FAFSA, and every year you will get a new EFC or SAI, the Student Aid Index. Colleges will take their cost of attendance and they'll subtract from it your EFC and determine whether or not you have need. This is changing, this formula is changing with the new FAFSA. They will also take into account any age you're bringing to the table. So there would be another circle in this figure right here. It would be cost of attendance minus SAI, your student aid index, minus additional financial aid, and then they will determine your financial need. If the cost of attendance is above that number, or your EFC, or you have a positive number still after you subtract those, then you are eligible for need-based aid. On the other side, if your EFC is above the cost of attendance, then you do not demonstrate financial need. It is sending the message to the college that you can afford their school. You do not need grants or like a federal Pell Grant, institutional grant, but you may still be eligible for merit aid. And a lot of schools allow you to stack the two on each other. So you can take a need-based grant and still get a merit scholarship. There are a lot of different types of financial aid. The free money, which is in green because you don't have to pay it back, it's the best type of money, the grants and the scholarships. And so grants are going to be, like I said, the federal Pell Grant. A lot of people have heard the term Pell. A+ here in the state of Missouri, we have a fantastic A+ program. So if you have high school students in the state of Missouri, definitely talk to your counselors and A+ coordinators about this. It is a state grant that students who graduate from a Missouri high school with a 2.5 GPA, 95% attendance, and 50 hours of unpaid tutoring or mentoring can attend a community college or trade school, tech school here in the state of Missouri, tuition and fees paid for. It's a great way to either get into your career with an associate in applied science degree or transfer on to a 4-year school with just a general transfer degree. Obviously, scholarships, people know what scholarships are. You don't have to pay back scholarships so long as you meet your scholarship requirements. Need-based is going to be determined on your EFC related to the cost of attendance. Merit-based, it's a talent that your student brings. And so that can be your athletic, academics, leadership, performance, talent. But like I said, those can often be stacked together to help. And sometimes you can put grants on top of those. Moving into the work study, that's earned money. So this is important for someone who's taking work study to understand, in that you don't get the money up front. You may qualify for, let's say, $2,000 in work study. And while it's presented in your financial aid letter as $2,000 taken off your cost of attendance, it's not money that you're getting up front. You will earn it along the way in the form of a paycheck. So if you needed that money up front to make a bill, it's not going to be there until you work those hours. Work study jobs usually are on campus, but not all on-campus jobs are work study. I encourage students to get work study positions if possible, but certainly get an on-campus job if you're looking for a job during school. On-campus jobs are just some of the best because they coincide with the student's schedule, and those who are working on campus know that you're there to get your degree. You understand what your priority is. And then if you still have a gap after scholarships, grants, and work study, if you qualify, not everyone qualifies for work study, I should point that out, but if you still have a gap, then you'll see a loan offered on your financial aid. And there are lots of different types of loans, so we're going to talk about those next. Maybe before I go forward with this, Elise, do we have any questions right now?
No questions.
Okay, all right, so moving into loans, the first type of loan, which is the best loan, is going to be the student loan through the FAFSA. It is the best because it has the lowest interest rate and a fairly low rate overall, for the fact that this is a young person with little to no credit, and there's no collateral in this loan. These loans can be subsidized or unsubsidized. That's the only difference between the two loans. The subsidized loan is based on your need. So do you demonstrate financial need? And just because you demonstrate financial need doesn't automatically mean you'll get a subsidized loan. You may, and it means that it will be 0% interest while you are enrolled in school at least half time. If you get the unsubsidized version, the interest starts accruing as soon as it's dispersed. So fall funds go out in September, those start accruing interest. Spring semester funds typically go out in January, and then that's when it starts accruing interest. Some students see a combination of both. They get subsidized and unsubsidized loans, but there are limits. And so the most a freshman can take out is $5,500 in their freshman year. That's, across the 2 semesters. So you'll see $2,750 in the fall and $2,750 in the spring. You don't see the full $2,750 because there are some fees attached to federal loans. But for the lifetime of a bachelor's degree, you can take out $31,000. I will point out that of your 5,500 freshmen, the most you can take out is 3,500 subsidized. So even if you are full need and you qualify for that subsidized version, the most you're going to get is 3,500 your freshman year. So at least 2,000 of your 5,500 limit will be accruing interest. Now, we're going to take a look at a student and walk through her financial aid offer so you can kind of understand how maybe you got to the point you are this summer, and then we will talk about ways to cover her gap. So our student is Kiara. She has a 3.75 GPA, an ACT score of 26, and an EFC of 29,000. She is looking at 2 schools. Her first school is your public in-state institution with a cost of attendance per year at 27,000. Her EFC of 29,000 is actually above the cost of attendance. So when we talked about that, because she does not have a gap there, she does not qualify for need-based aid. However, academically, she meets some of the scholarship requirements, and she is offered a $3,500 scholarship. Again, merit aid has nothing to do with EFC. Now, I will point out that not all schools offer merit aid. Some schools only offer need-based aid. College B is a private institution with a very high cost of attendance, 84,000. Her estimated family contribution of 29,000 still leaves a gap of 55,000. So as a private institution, they can determine how they want to fill that gap. They have chosen to give Kiara a $24,000 grant. So just off the top, they're taking $24,000 off their cost of attendance. They're also giving her a $10,000 scholarship. So she is qualifying for $34,000 in aid there. That's a huge scholarship amount, and that's just for 1 year. However, she still has a gap of 50,000. And so this is pretty common. Students see that they get this big scholarship, but it's really important that you understand the net price, because even with that $34,000 scholarship, she still is on the hook for $50,000. So how can Kiera cover these costs and help her family make this decision? If you take the net price after their aid and take away her $5,500 federal student loan, she has a gap of $18,000 with college A. College B, she has a gap of $44,500. So at this point, even if she chooses the less expensive option of college A, how does Kiera cover that $18,000? And there are ways to talk about, or there are different ways to fill the gap. You can do savings or earned income. A parent can take the federal Parent Plus loan, or you can take a private loan with the cosigner. But the key takeaway, so the first takeaway for tonight is, if your child or student needs more than $5,500 to cover the cost of attendance, then someone else, and it's usually a parent, someone else will have to borrow for them or with them as a co-borrower. And as you can see in Kiera's example, that can get pretty pricey. So I have worked with families who have multiple children, and parents have borrowed with their older student, and that has used up their credit for the younger students. And so that the younger students have fewer options about where they're going to go to school because mom or dad can't borrow with them. And so at this point, when it involves another person to borrow, this becomes a family conversation. And one of the things I like all my families to do is have a conversation as a family about your expectations. So to talk about ways that Kiera can cover her gap, we have to look at additional education loans. These can be either student loans or parent loans. They can be federal or private, and you can borrow up to that cost of attendance. So whatever that gap is, you can cover up to it. So she could borrow up to $18,000 for college A, or she could have borrowed up to $44,500 for college B. These loans, and almost all loans except for that one student subsidized version, are unsubsidized, meaning that they accrue interest from the moment the funds are dispersed. However, just because they're accruing interest doesn't mean you are required to make the payment. And so most education loans allow you to defer the loan while the student is enrolled in school. You are still accruing the interest, so it's not, I mean, you're not being penalized for not making a payment, but you are accruing interest. So you want to have that in mind. But it's a common question I get all the time from families is, do I have to make a payment right away? And in both the federal and the private sector, you can defer your loans in the education loan world. So like I said, they could be federal. The common one is the federal Parent Plus. This is one interest rate for all parents. And so because it's one interest rate, it actually is a pretty high interest rate. Plus it has an origination fee. So if you are a parent with a decent to good credit history, I recommend that you look at the private sector. If you can't find anything better than what you can get in the Parent Plus loan, then take the Parent Plus loan. It's there, it's going to be there, and you're going to get approved for it unless you have like bankruptcy in your background. It's pretty easy to get approved for the Parent Plus loan. You do apply for the Parent Plus loan separately through the studentaid.gov site. That loan may be in your student's financial aid letter. What is unlikely to be in the letter are the private loan options. And that is what you do want to explore if you have good credit, because you can I can almost guarantee that you will find something better in the private sector than you will in the Plus loan. So the private sector, you will just be shopping around. You can do all your shopping in the span of a few weeks, and the bureaus will know that you're shopping. And so they will only pull your credit once. Use the same amount when in your research. You're looking for an education loan. You're not going to take 6 education loans because you can only take one. You can only be taking federal or you can only be taking financial aid from one school. So, but do explore your options to make sure you're getting the best one for yourself. And that's what key takeaway number 2 is that you have options, especially for my parents who are going through this the first time. I hear all the time that you didn't know you had an option outside of the Parent Plus loan. And again, the Parent Plus loan has a really high interest rate. So just know that you have options. If you don't know what your options are, please reach out to me and I will make sure you understand them. And then you can take the one that's best for your family. What does it look like to borrow your loans? Like, what's the timeline? Right now, we are in the thick of the student loan season. And so I spend all my time talking about that. In the early spring of your senior year, your student received a financial aid letter from any school where they were admitted, and they sent their financial aid, their FAFSA. They sent their FAFSA application. The school will take those 2 pieces of information, put it together, prepare a package, and send you a letter. And in the letter, it tells, this is our cost of attendance. This is what your EFC is from the FAFSA. Here's all the aid we're offering. Here are the loans you're getting. Here's the loan if you need a Parent Plus loan, and then here's your gap. All of that information, and maybe you lined your letters up and you compared them apples to apples. Those you get those letters only if you're admitted. So if you applied to a school but you didn't get admitted, they're not going to send you a letter. And then similarly, if you applied to a school and got admitted but you didn't put them on your FAFSA, they don't have your financial aid information. And so they may send you a letter, but it's not going to have, there are very few schools who are going to award you institutional aid without having filed a FAFSA. And some of you might have had to file a CSS profile, which is a separate application for about 150 to 200 colleges in the country. So you might have done that as well, but all of that is taking place during your senior year, and it's at springtime that you get the actual letter. And then in May, we historically have called May the National Decision Day. That COVID really changed that. And so it used to be more firm than it is now. I still encourage my families to make their decision so that you can start making plans. Let the schools know if you're attending or if you're not attending so that they can cross you off their list, and stop sending you mail, because you'll have gotten a lot of mail by that point. Sometime during the summer, you will attend an orientation or enroll in classes. It's at this point that then the school can run a bill for you, because they know what you're taking for the fall, and they know where you're living, they know what meal plan you've signed up for, and then you will get a bill. Once you get that bill, that's really when you want to start the application process. Right now, if you haven't enrolled in classes, I would wait until you enroll in classes. If you don't need money until spring semester, don't apply right now. You don't have you don't have an account with the school yet. They're not going to be asking for any funds. So at 30 days out, or when you get that bill, you need to not only do your applications, but you will want to accept your students' financial aid through their online student account. The schools tend to make it pretty easy. You just log in and check that you do want your federal student loan. You don't have to accept scholarships and grants, because those are the free money, the ones you don't have to pay back. But the ones that you do have to pay back, the loans, you have to physically accept that loan. They don't just automatically give it to you. And then for the parent, you would need to apply on the federal site for your Parent Plus loan, or as a student and co-borrower, you'll need to do that through the private loans. So at Community America, we do have an education line of credit. I love the product that my team created, having worked with a lot of families. One of the drawbacks of the student loan process is that you have to apply every single year. So traditional student loans are tied to the academic year, similar to the FAFSA. You file one FAFSA and it works for that 1 year, and then you do it again for the next year. That's how a lot of traditional student loans go as well. You apply for them year after year. With the line of credit with us, you only apply once, you get locked in. We have both fixed and variable options. We have flexible repayment plans. We are competitive with our rates, and We do not have an origination fee. Most private lenders don't have an origination fee, unlike the federal loans, which both the student and the parent version have origination fees. We have a co-borrower release. And so after 36, so 3 years of on-time payment, once you enter the repayment period, your co-borrower can be released. That's important for families where the agreement has been that the student is going to cover the cost and the parent is just borrowing with them to get the money. Or maybe you're a situation with you're a parent with multiple children and you're trying to free up some of your credit. You do have the co-borrower release option with us. And the money just sits in an account on reserve for you. And then every semester you log into your account and you request that the funds be sent to your school. And at that point, those funds start accruing interest. The rest of the money doesn't accrue interest until you use it. And there's no penalty for not using it or for paying it off early. So it's a great product. Happy to talk to you more about that. But let's say that you get your letter and you decide that this does not fit into our family's plan on how much we want to spend. What are your options then? And this has happened. I've been in this field for a long time and I've seen this happen right in front of my eyes. You do have options. So again, your key takeaway number 2 is that you have options. Here are some others, other ways to get to your education goal. Here in Kansas and Missouri, we have excellent community colleges. And so consider just choosing a less expensive school, whether it's a 2-year school or a less expensive 4-year public institution in your state. There are less expensive options. The 2-year schools, depending on what you want to do, you might be able to get right into your field by getting that career degree. Otherwise, you can just transfer onto the 4-year school. If you are a family and you're starting this process with a younger student, look at schools where your student is academically in the top 25%. I can help you find that information because we know that information. Schools have to submit their academic information. So that is one way to make your student competitive for scholarships. You could take a year off or take some time working for a company in your area of interest. A lot of employers often offer tuition reimbursement. The military obviously has tuition reimbursement. There are outside scholarships. I will say that the majority of your money comes from your institution. And so before you spend all your energy applying for outside scholarships, make sure you've applied to all the scholarships at your institution for which you're eligible. We in Kansas and Missouri have a partnership with the Midwest Student Exchange Program. And so you can look at schools that participate with that. And it takes a percentage of that in-state, out-of-state cost difference off. And you can always ask, can I get more money? Doesn't always work. And it doesn't always work at the public schools. Private schools tend to have more freedom in how they can use their money. And so go ahead and ask. The worst that's going to happen is they're just going to say no. And then you have to decide, do I want to spend the money? Here are some scholarship searches. So again, the bulk of your money comes from your institution. But once you have exhausted your institution scholarships and you want to look other places, start with your circle and expand. Use your energy on the things that are closest to you. And then if you still have time and bandwidth in your day, look at the next circle out rather than like going straight to the national websites and applying for all the national stuff and ignoring your local options. Here in Kansas City, we have some fantastic scholarship options. Casey Scholars for you local Kansas Cityans, 9th and 11th grade scholarships, as well as adults. And so if you are an adult out there with some college experience, Casey Scholars has awards for you to return to school. In fact, Community America sponsors 2 scholarships through the Casey Scholars program. Lots of scholarships out there. The national ones that I list, they're all free, but they sometimes have annoying pop-up ads. So just pick one. You don't have to follow all of them. They all are pulling from the same database. And so just pick one, create a profile, and make your profile as streamlined to you as possible, because those scholarship sites are going to throw back thousands of scholarships. You don't have time to review thousands of scholarships. And so you want to be intentional about the ones that you do review, and you can get there by being very specific in your profile. And then my last takeaway for tonight is that the conversation is so important. As I mentioned in the borrowing piece, once you need more than $5,500 to attend college, it becomes a family conversation, and it may extend beyond a mom or a dad. I've worked with older siblings who are co-borrowing with their younger siblings. Obviously, grandparents are involved in a lot of these situations, aunts, uncles, loved ones. Whoever is in that conversation on how are we going to pay for this, you all need to get on the same page. And I don't really care what page that is. It really isn't up to me to get you to a certain page. I want you all just on one page, and then I can help you depending on what is right for you. Some people want to support their student, but they are unable to borrow for them. So the student needs to know that all the borrowing, the repayment will ultimately fall on them. That is something you need to share with your student up front, because that may affect where they go to school, particularly if they're choosing a career where their entry-level salaries aren't going to make that much money. Is everyone okay borrowing? And what are those expectations around what kind of grades are people going to get? If I'm going to borrow for you, I expect a certain return on my money. And so have that conversation. It may not be something you can do in one conversation. You may have to revisit it multiple times. Keep in mind that money, that's often a trigger for people. This is a huge transition for not just the student, but for the parents for whom the student is moving out. And you might need to just take a breather and then revisit the conversation after emotions are, calmed down. That's totally normal, but have that conversation. And if you need help having that conversation, you can always reach out to me. My services are free. They're free for all of you. I'm happy to help you with this. I love my job, and I love working for Community America and helping our members reach their education goals with the least amount of debt as possible. So thank you for joining me tonight. I'm going to see if we have any questions, and then I will stick around to get those answered. I hope you all enjoy your evening and that you have a great summer if you are signing off.
Two questions, Carly. The first one is, can you say it again? When is the right time to apply?
Yes. Okay. So the application for student loans really needs to start approximately 30 days out from when your due date. So whenever your school says that first payment is due, you want to start your search about 30 days out from that.
Great. And then the second, why do you recommend taking that student loan first? If I'm going to end up getting a big loan anyways, why do we not just roll that extra $5,000 into the big loan?
Sure. Okay, so I definitely have families who do, because the interest rate is not that big of a difference, and they're like, I just want one loan. I typically encourage people to take the federal student loan for two reasons. It is the best interest rate you're going to find, and then it is money in the student's name. And so it just takes the parent off the hook, because remember, this is for the student. And so I'm okay with students having some skin in the game. But I work with families who do not want their student to borrow. Like, this is a gift they want to give their student. So they decline the student loan and they have great credit. And so they're getting a pretty competitive rate in the private sector, and they just take that additional money in the private sector. That is totally fine. Whatever works for your family, I can help you in either of those situations.
That's all our questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all.
Sorry.
One more.
When would you want to start applying for scholarships?
Oh, this is a good question. So scholarships, I did mention Casey Scholars. So for local Kansas Cityans, that scholarship, the traditional scholarship, which is for college, you actually apply for it during your junior year in high school. So that is an early one. Most scholarships you don't apply for until senior year. However, you can do the legwork before then. And I do recommend that my students, as soon as they start meeting with me, and I meet with students as early as freshman year, as soon as they start meeting with me, they can start researching scholarships. taking notes of which ones that they think they will qualify for in the future, because if it has a March 1st deadline this year, it's probably going to have a March 1st deadline next year and then their senior year. So you don't typically apply until senior year, but I recommend you do your research early. And when you do your research early, if you stumble across something like the Casey Scholars one that is in junior year application, a junior year application, you learn that and you don't miss it. Whereas if you don't start until your senior year, you would have missed out on something like that. So I have some tools for searching for scholarships. Happy to share those with you if you'd like.
That is all.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Enjoy your evening.